Hello and welcome. I'm Alexa Gilmore, your friendly neighborhood AccuDoc, and this is your daily dose of no-nonsense medicine. So this week in the clinic, I'm starting to see what I start to see around this time of year every year, which is an uptick in anxiety, in people feeling kind of off, kind of cranky, kind of blue, out of sorts, even as the weather is improving. And as I get started with the big obvious caveat, there's a lot going on in the world right now, and I'm seeing a lot of anxiety and blues and out of sortness in general. But there is this particular springtime variety that I want to talk about today because it makes so much sense when we view it through the lens of Chinese medicine. And so I want to share that lens because I think it can give us some context for how we're feeling. And I think that that helps depathologize how we may be feeling, jumping to this conclusion that something must be wrong. Um, by which I mean, it's going to help us make sense of it, understand it, not necessarily decide right away that something's wrong that we need to run and try to fix, but maybe see how what we're feeling may be seasonal, it may be contextual, it may be just a reflection of this calendar moment in time, and that it will pass. This too shall pass. Um, or maybe this information, this way of looking at it, can help us relate to these feelings as, you know, again, feelings aren't good or bad, they're simply information. Feelings, emotions, they're not problems to be fixed in and of themselves. They're messengers, they're pointers. So, what information is trying to be communicated to us through these feelings? And then, what do we want to do with that information? That's the real ultimate question. What do we want to do with what we've learned from these emotional messengers? Okay. So, first of all, for this exercise, let's place ourselves in the context of being animals on a planet, which we are. The Earth, the planet, the Earth around us during spring and fall goes through a big transition, especially, I live in Maine, recording this in Maine, big transitions in the spring and fall of the year. So, right now, everything that's been quiet and dormant under the ground is beginning to swell. It's the second week of March right now as I record this. And here in New England, we're really starting to feel that ground swell, that swelling up that's happening all around us. The sap starts flowing in March. The days are appreciably longer and they're getting longer faster. Um, we can start to feel that length. The sun is getting appreciably higher in the sky. The angle starts to feel really different from the angle of the sun in winter. I'm up at or before dawn every morning, and there's actually birds chirping again now. There were not birds chirping in the morning a month ago. So spring is very clearly trying to burst up and out through the frozen ground and the snow. We still have snow in my yard, and shake off this dormancy of winter. Autumn into winter, we feel as this contraction. It's a descending energy and a contracting energy. And that happens again out in nature and in our bodies. Winter into springtime and then into summer is this big expansion. So we've got this contraction happening and then this expansion happening, this contraction, expansion, pumping life. Most of us, I think, are really excited about the prospect of spring. People like to talk about it a lot. Um, I love winter. I know I'm not the only one, but a lot of people that I see in the clinic don't necessarily embrace winter. It's something that they more endure. Um, Winter has a lot to offer psychospiritually and physically in general, and from a Chinese medicine perspective, if we take winter up on that offer. Um, there's rest, there's quiet, there's darkness, there's stillness, there's peace, there's contemplation, there's solitude. These are not things our culture particularly values, and they are things that often make people feel uncomfortable or like something might be wrong with them, that there's an invitation to rest as opposed to just the go, go, go that our culture is much more comfortable with. So anyway, I can say a lot more about winter, but for our purposes here, winter is a season that most of us are really excited to kind of have in the rearview mirror. And yet, this transition from winter to spring can feel kind of jangly for folks. So what's happening? We want the transition. From a Chinese medicine perspective, what's happening to help this make some sense that it feels jangly? So in Chinese medicine, springtime is associated with the liver. And we're going to say liver with a capital L. So remember that in Chinese medicine, when we say liver, this can be about your liver organ, like the actual organ in your body, but also when we say liver with a capital L, or heart, capital H heart, or capital S spleen, or whatever organ, in Chinese medicine, it includes what we understand, it includes the organ, what we understand from a Western perspective to be the functions of that organ, but it also includes a much broader set of functions in the body that are not just the physical aspects like filtering blood or detoxifying or regulating blood sugar, but also mental, emotional, and spiritual aspects of being human. We are more than a sack of organs. um, there's all these aspects of being human that are governed by the liver, capital L, liver energy, or by the capital H, heart energy, or the capital S, spleen energy, or whatever organ we're talking about. So when I talk about liver here, the liver organ is just one part. And please don't misunderstand any of this to think that there's something wrong with your liver. That is not what we're saying. So just to make that very clear. So springtime is associated with the liver and with the element wood. In Chinese medicine, every season has an organ system associated with it and also an element. And in springtime, the element is wood. So in springtime, we have the liver energy and the wood element. So, what the liver energy in the body, what the liver energy wants to do in springtime, in the body all the time, but then especially in springtime, is what we see wood in nature doing in springtime. So, let's translate for now wood to vegetation. Like wood is more broadly growing things, so plants and trees and flowers. Everything in nature, as we've said, is starting to wake up. And as it's doing that, it's all reaching upward and outward. The direction of spring is upward and outward. Everything wants to reach, it wants to grow, it wants to stretch. Everything's trying to find the sun. Sap is rising. Bulbs below the surface, somehow, how they're reaching for the sun because they know, I know it's the soil temperature, but there's magic there too. Um, Inside trees, we don't see leaves here yet in Maine, but that movement, that outward, upward reaching movement is starting. This is liver energy, one aspect of liver energy. It wants to expand, to stretch, to reach, to grow. This is the energy of spring. I think we can all agree that that's the feeling in the air. We all feel that. So imagine that that same kind of energy that is happening outside, that same stirring is happening in the body. Remember, we're working on the premise that we're animals on this planet, totally part of it. We're not separate. We're not like alien creatures that somehow function independently from this world around us that we're a part of. So that springtime energy that is surging outside, that same energy is stirring and starting to surge. It's not quite surging yet, let's be honest. It's only March, but it's stirring, right? It's stirring. Um, it's waking up. It wants to reach. It wants to grow. It wants to stretch into its full potential for this growing season. So if we're feeling irritable or depressed or otherwise out of sorts as this energy is starting to move, there's a couple of ways to look at this. There's probably lots of ways. We're going to look at it a couple of ways together today. So first, one way is there something getting in the way of my stretching and reaching? Is there something getting in the way of my desire to express and to expand and to unfold? The second way of looking at it is there something about that contraction, about the hibernation and the darkness and that inwardness of winter that I actually am not ready to let go of, I don't want to release. And thereby I'm not allowing myself, or it might be something in my physiology, like it might be I psychospiritually am not allowing myself, or there can actually be in my physiology, I'm not allowing myself um, to move out from winter into my next natural iteration. So on the one hand, am I in the flow of springtime? Like I'm ready for this, but I'm meeting resistance. I'm hitting a wall. I can feel that stirring and I want to reach and grow and expand, but I feel blocked somehow. Or on the other hand, um, am I in myself, or is something within me actually resisting that flow, like resisting stepping into that flow? Am I really holding on to that contraction or isolation because there's some part of me that's not comfortable with the reach and the expand, because I don't like what that would mean for me, or because I can't? Again, there can be like a physiological thing at play here. Um, Either way, we're in flow and hitting resistance, or we're feeling resistance to the flow itself and clinging to some time that's actually passed. Either way, we're probably going to feel jangly because our internal energy isn't aligned. It's not matching the energy of what's happening on the planet that made us. um, we're mismatched with what's happening around us. If we're in the flow and we're meeting resistance, that jangliness might show up more as irritability or frustration, like being kind of pissed off, being kind of road ragey, like, get out of my way, man. I got things to do. I'm going somewhere. Like, gosh. Ugh. If we're resisting the flow, if we don't like the flow, if we don't have the capacity to step into it, or psychospiritually, there's some reason that we don't want to be in it, that might show up more as a depression or a sadness. It's a lack of flow. We're stuck, we're not moving, we don't want to move, we think we don't want to move. So if we want to take a closer look, hopefully that makes sense. If we want to take a closer look at what these feelings are trying to communicate, again, remembering feelings are messengers, then in the first instance, we can look at, where am I feeling underexpressed in my life? Where do I want to be or do or have or say or create something, and it's just not happening? Is there some way that I'm not expressing myself in my relationships, or feel like I'm not able to express myself in my relationships? And so I'm hitting this wall of expression. Do I feel restricted or constricted in my professional life? Do I see a direction that I want to go in, but it feels like I'm not able to move freely in that direction, to grow in that direction, because there's these obstacles or resistance that seem to be in my way? Is there some sort of creative expression that's in me that needs to get out? Am I not being creative? Um, yeah, is there a creative project that I gotta open up that channel so that everything else in my life can feel like it's moving? Do I simply need to move my body more? I hope all of us can relate to this in spring. Is it just a literal physical constriction, contraction that's making me cranky because I've been stuck in my house all winter? In Chinese medicine, not hopefully you'll see the connection. This liver energy governs our tendons and our sinews. It governs movement in some ways. There's other things at play here too, but a lot of us get tired of winter by the end because of the way it cramps our style, literally, in terms of getting outside and moving our physical bodies. So sometimes this time of year, if we feel an increase in irritability or crankiness, it's just our body reminding us that it's time to inhabit our bodies and move our bodies more. And that helps us engage that liver energy and move into the season and align more with what's happening outside. So if any of that resonates with you, the story that you've identified may not be new, like this feeling of being stuck. You're like, yeah, I know. I always feel stuck in this relationship or in my job or creative expression. Like maybe this is a theme. But that stuckness may be highlighted right now. It might feel particularly egregious because the nature of the season, the growing, the reaching, the expanding nature of the season throws a spotlight on those needs, on those desires to reach toward expression, to reach toward self-actualization, to become more of who we are, to evolve into the next iteration of who we are. So maybe we're being shown now through this messenger of irritability or jangliness, those areas of stuckness, like in a way that we can't ignore, like we've crossed a threshold of irritability to just like try to get our attention. In the second instance, where there's some part of us physiologically or psychospiritually that's resisting the flow, we've dug deep into hibernation maybe, and the thought of coming back into the world as it starts to wake up is unpleasant. Maybe we feel exposed. Spring is about reaching and growing and being seen. Like, bulbs have been underground for a while now and they're poking up through the surface. Spring also dovetails into summer, which is full of life and energy and socializing and connection. So those of us for whom that in and of itself is a growth edge, there's a subset of people who jive with winter because it creates a cover through hibernation of what we're actually more comfortable with year round. So in winter, there's a subset of people who feel less bad, whose blues or sadness or depression may feel more pronounced now because all of the connecting that other people seem to do so easily. Well, that happens now, but that isn't as in our face in the wintertime. So there's a subset of people who feel better in the wintertime because all of that easeful connection is kind of hidden at home behind closed doors. It's not out in the world. And so our own growth edge there, our own trials there are less in our face. And then spring starts. And then suddenly people are out again and we see these connections happening. And we, again, are confronted with the ways that we don't feel as comfortable making those connections, or the ways where we don't feel like that kind of connection is available to us. And it can really exacerbate depression or a sense of loneliness or isolation that might have been like less apparent or less painful in the wintertime. And this is totally normal. And it can be really painful, but it also can make sense. I think it's helpful to see how it makes sense when we look at the bigger context in this way, seasonally. So if we want to take a closer look at this set of feelings, asking questions, what is it that feels so comforting to me about this hibernation in the winter? What is it about being exposed, growing, vulnerability, being seen that feels threatening or scary? This kind of line of questioning. What am I strongly holding on to, or what am I comforted by in the winter months? And what am I resisting? What feels pokey as we move into these more connected months? And there's always really good information, no matter what, there's always really good information for us when we're brave enough to ask those kinds of questions and to actually contemplate the answers a little bit. Alternatively to all of this, maybe it's just the season. Maybe there's not anything to do, and that is okay. Maybe this just gives you some context and we just notice it, and then we don't have to worry about it. We don't have to fix it. It doesn't have to be a problem. We can just go, oh, I get it. I'm feeling a little cranky because I'm like shaking the rust off of my movement. We're we've got some rust that's built up on on activity and movement. And it's liver season, and those parts of us are waking up. We're moving again in new ways. And that's okay. Nothing to do. Just it's just the season. This too shall pass. And we can just relax about it and get outside a little more and take a walk. So there's lots of ways to look at this transition. If it's feeling kind of jangly, just knowing that we're in it can be helpful. Like I said, providing some context so we're not wondering, like, what's going on? Why do I feel this way? Um, in terms of other tools, acupuncture can be so helpful, supporting us through all kinds of emotional upheavals or emotional dysregulation, navigating all kinds of transitions, including these kinds of seasonal transitions. It can really help get your body and your system more in lockstep with the flow of things around us. It can help move some of those blocks. It can help create some movement when we're stuck in stagnation or hibernation. I've got lots of people who come to see me seasonally for that reason. And I would have to say, it happens more often in the spring and in the fall. That these are these places, these pivotal seasons. And also, as these transitions and what comes up for us during them point to deeper themes in our lives, um, recurrent themes, patterns of behavior that we may feel bound to or trapped by. Maybe the things you're feeling frustrated by or irritated with or sad about, it might feel like a broken record. Like, I have been here so many times and I am so, so tired of this. In these cases, we can think about, all right, like, I'm ready to change this. What do I bring on board? You've got a spotlight, like I said. There's a spotlight. Sometimes these seasons, they create a critical mass that finally pushes us toward action. Like, I just can't ignore this anymore. So how do we shift those patterns on a deeper level? There's so many tools out there. In my practice, those tools tend to be the tools of the spiritual counseling model that I work within, where we're not just bringing conscious awareness, more hopefully conscious awareness to these patterns of behavior, to the stuckness that we really like, we're ready to be done with. We're ready to move beyond it. But what I love about this work is the tools actually help extract us from those patterns, not just cultivate awareness around them, though that can be the first step, but to actually extract ourselves from some of those root causes so that we can finally be free of them. And it really is actually possible to be free from patterns of behavior that we've been running for years. Okay. So I hope you found a little nugget or two in there that you can take away and contemplate. If you have any questions, I would love to tend to them. Leave them in the comments. If you're listening or watching this somewhere with comments, please do that, or shoot me a message and I'm happy to answer. Thanks for being here. Happy spring, and bye for now.